Hi, I'm Amanda Maloney, the Associate Photograph and Paper Conservator from the Northeast Document Conservation Center. And today I'm going to show how to build a simple sync mat for photograph. So this photographic object is a good candidate for a sync mat. As you can see, the mount is quite brittle. It's already lost its upper right-hand corner. So putting it in a protective sync mat will help to preserve the rest of the object. Now, when making custom housing for a photograph, the first step is to measure the photograph. So we can see that this photograph is 8 by 10 inches. So generally, when making enclosures for photographs, it's good to size up to the next standard size. So because this is 8 by 10, I'll size up to 11 by 14. So I will cut a backing board, which is 11 by 14 inches for the photograph to sit on. And then to make the sink, I will put other pieces of corrugated blue board along the sides. So you can do a little simple math to figure out the correct dimensions for the sides and cut your strips to fit. It's always a good idea after you cut, before you tape anything in place, to double check that the dimensions seem accurate. And so they do. Once you start working with tapes, it's a good idea to make sure that you move your object out of the way, that it won't accidentally get any tape on it. I'll be using a 3M 415 double-sided tape to adhere these pieces down onto the backing board. It's a good idea when putting the tape down to make sure that you leave a bit of a margin between the edge of the board and the edge of the tape. And that's because tapes with acrylic adhesive, such as these, do have a tendency to creep over time. So you want to make sure that there's a little bit of a edge so that none of it creeps out from underneath the board. I'm going to put down 2 pieces of tape on this because of the thickness of it, to make sure that it has good adhesion. Now, something I like to do when I'm placing an object with double-sided tape is to peel off part of the carrier so that I can see it from the other side, and then position it before removing the carrier completely. And so positioning it so it lines up with the outer edge of the board, I can tack down that edge which has the exposed adhesive, and then remove the release layer from either side, and then put pressure to get it in place. And then repeat that for all 4 edges, so that you have this, which is your sink. And then the next step is applying the cover for it. So another piece of 11 by 14 cardboard. For the hinge for these, I like to use Tyvek-based pressure-sensitive tape with an acrylic adhesive. The Tyvek tends to be very strong and can take a lot of flexing back and forth. I'll first apply the interior hinge, and for this I find it's helpful to build up a couple layers of board so that you are putting the hinge on a level surface. So I'm putting 1 piece of board underneath, and then I'm putting the new cover, where I want it to be, and so that's level between where it's going to be attached here to the sink mat and to the lid. And then I'll cut my Tyvek tape to size. This tape also has a release layer that needs to be removed before it can be set down in place. And then it's helpful to have a bone folder to burnish it down to make sure that you've made good contact along the edge. And so that's the interior hinge. For added strength, it's good to also apply an exterior hinge, similarly with the Tyvek tape. Now for this hinge, I'll apply it to one side first. And because sometimes it has a tendency to kind of fold and buckle when you're pushing it down, I like to bring it up and then kind of roll the spine onto the tape so that it's making even contact throughout, and then roll it down onto the back. And again, reinforcing the adhesion with a bone folder to make sure that you have good contact throughout. Now, the next thing with a sink mat that you want to think about is making sure that you have a way of safely getting the photograph in and out. Since it should be pretty close to the edges here, it's good to have another piece of paper or something to lift it with. So here I have just a rectangle of paper that has been folded into sort of a Z formation that fits into the sink and helps to hold the photograph in place. And then also allow to safely pick up the photograph without having to try to wedge something in between or give it too direct pressure, which could break the brittle mount. Another alternative to having a complete separate sheet is sometimes you can build in a sheet just to help with lifting. So before adhering this tab, you could attach a piece of paper to it and then put this in. And then this piece of paper you would just lift so that you could get under the entire object before removing it. There's lots of variations that can be done with sink mats. This just happens to be a simple one. Another important aspect is to make sure that they're clearly labeled. So here this says this side up to make sure that it's in the correct orientation. And then the paper here says lift at both ends to remove, so that anyone using this will be able to figure out how to safely use it. Now with this kind of sink mat, you would want to make sure that it was stored horizontally with this side up. You can do modifications where you might add a window mat on top or some kind of strapping for vertical storage, but in general, horizontal storage is best for this type of fragile object.